institutions. And a big driver of that was historically there were enormous frictions for institutions to be able to hold directly. And now I think that's why.
However, the role of the United States in the world economy is changing, and finance is always changing.
And wasting taxpayer dollars. It's not just his war on crypto, though. Gensler has bungled the administration's climate agenda at the SEC, wasting even more time and taxpayer money.
If you collect some of those grains of sand, you get uber wealth.
It's just get over that, right? Just assume that's going to happen, make the central banks do it in a reasonably cost-effective way, and then just have at it in the open market and see what happens. I think there's
high-frequency traders to actually be active market makers on Ripple. That provides liquid markets. That's good for everybody, gives them an incentive in the long-term success of the network.
Is instead of having, gradual piecemeal steps to complete a transaction, you sort of package all together in the tokens, and then you just exchange tokens.
There's been a trend decline in the amount of the dollar in FX reserves over time. It used to be 70%. It has come down over time.
Future growth projections of 53%, which will be $290 trillion by the end of this decade, 2030.
You get uber wealth.
Know what you hold?
Enjoy the ride, pal.
It's the XRP Army.
If you got some baggies, welcome to the party. Welcome back to some more Moon O'Clock News. Shout out to the latest sub. Appreciate you stopping by, tuning in, smashing them likies. We got the total global cryptocurrency market cap today at 2.6 trillion, up about 2.8% in the past 24. We got XRP in that number 8 spot, currently right around 52 cents, up about 2.7% in the past 24. We got Stellar XLM right around 10-11 cents. BTC 68,657. ETH right around 3,000. We got Flare Networks right around 0.027. XLR $1.05. XDC 0.036. We got Songbird 008. Stronghold 008. We got Zahao right around 13 cents. Evernode 25 cents. We got one from Tom Emmer to pop things off. Crypto has shifted economic power from centralized institutions back into the hands of the people. The CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act, the Securities Clarity Act, and the FIT 21 will provide the regulatory certainty needed to ensure that Web3 is designed with our American values. We got digital asset investor X Ripple, Robbie Mitchnick, BlackRock, sitting beside X Ripple board member Zoe Cruz.
Of American adults holding some exposure to Bitcoin or crypto. Obviously, it was a fraction of that for institutions. And a big driver of that was historically there were enormous frictions for institutions to be able to hold directly. And now I think that's why the ETFs have been such a game changer, because they've brought that to a level of parity where you have, for the first time, efficient, turnkey, low-cost exposure vehicles. And so we're starting to see the journey that institutions now go on as a result.
Lauren? I think we've talked a lot on this panel about the trend.
We got one from Subject Views. Fed Governor Waller remarks on the critics of the dollar and its imminent demise.
Now, despite all the benefits that the dollar provides the United States and global economies, and the efforts to mitigate some of the financial stability challenges posed by its dominant role, there has for some time been commentary predicting that the dollar is destined for demise. Potentially an imminent demise. So far, these predictions have not materialized, nor have they come close to materializing. The dollar remains by far the most widely used currency across a variety of metrics, including as a store of value and as a medium of exchange. However, the role of the United States in the world economy is changing, and finance is always changing. So I think it is important for policymakers to regularly consider if and why the dollar's role might change as well.
Gold, silver, XRP, know what you hold? We got one from Crypto Law US. So Gary Gensler enacted the SAB 121 and the Dems rose up to repeal it. He has used courts to wage a culture war, and judges have ruled against him and even sanctioned the agency for lying to them. It's time to go. Gensler's gotta go.
The Securities and Exchange Commission is supposed to protect investors, but its chairman, Gary Gensler, has done just the opposite. By regulating the crypto industry through lawsuits instead of rulemaking, Gensler is putting innovative companies out of business, hurting retail investors, and wasting taxpayer dollars. It's not just his war on crypto, though. Gensler has bungled the administration's climate agenda at the SEC, wasting even more time and taxpayer money while accomplishing nothing. He has mismanaged the SEC, lost crucial allies, confused markets, and caused a backlash against an agency that needs public confidence. Faith in the SEC's ability to safeguard our markets is lower than ever. Gensler has always cared more about his resume than about the functioning of the economy. He started his career at Goldman Sachs, then profited off high student debt. As a commodities regulator, he put himself above protecting markets and sparked a scandal. Then he led crypto studies at the Jeffrey Epstein-funded MIT Media Lab. Now he's messed up the SEC. Gensler is a liability for the Biden administration during an election year. In turbulent times, we need a steady hand guiding our financial markets, one we can trust. It's time for a new chairman of the SEC. Gensler's gotta go.
Gary, you still there? Meanwhile, Gary knows what's coming and he can't stop it. Ripple is a global payment network. XRP is at the center. Let that sink in. Those who are at XRP will be uber wealthy, like Gary mentions here.
I've thought this when I was at Goldman Sachs for 18 years, that finance sits at the neck of an hourglass. And it's why it collects so much economic rents from society, because when you sit at the neck of an hourglass and billions, literally trillions of grains of sand go by, if you collect some of those grains of sand, you get uber wealth. You get uber wealth.
Know what you hold, know what's coming, and know why Gary wants those. Baggy's back. Gary knows the truth, went on TV and then he lied. Pockets full of ETH, wells in disguise, XRP, hidden in plain sight. Got Crypto Eddie, lots of Ripple Brazil news. Ripple promotes seminar in Brazil to discuss the regulation of virtual assets in Brazil. Best practices and regulation of digital assets, blockchains, and CBDCs, 40-plus page study. Supported by Ripple, was developed by LAPIN, Public Policy and the Internet Laboratory. Another one from Crypto Eddie. Silvio Pagado, Ripple Managing Director of Latin America, explains how the new stablecoin will be used in cross-border payments. The choice to use XRP or a stablecoin depends on a few factors, including liquidity. The dollar is often used in trade in Latin America. Meanwhile, this is a must-watch. Ripple in the room with some heavy hitters. Ladies and gentlemen, James Wallace of Ripple.
Therefore, I mean, what is your view on what could be a commercial model for CBDC? Is there one? As we heard, it must be offered for free. And also in the rulebook discussion and other discussions in the design principles, there are certain incentivation. So what is your view from bank perspective or other perspective on what could be a commercial model for retail CBDC, or is there one?
I'll have a crack at it. I think just to preface that, I think there's a fundamental question really, which is, what's the role of the central bank? And if it's to say the same as it is, right, in this central bank money is, reserves and cash, right? So a lot of central banks are looking at this as, it's just replacing and improving that, right? As I said before, I don't think that's really the right answer. I think the longer people study and the more complicated they make it, the more expensive it's going to be. So I would encourage speed over total precision, right? And I think I still believe this blend of public-private is the answer, right? I think the central bank should do what they need to do at a reasonable cost and not burden everyone else with that cost. And then, the innovation and the competition will come from the private sector, right? So some will offer a bare minimum, say, okay, well, you can put your CBDC in my name the bank wallet, right? Or they'll say, okay, I'm going to offer all these other services in competition with my other banks, right? So I don't know where the commercial answer will be, but I think given that it's pretty much inevitable that there'll be some form of public digital money, it's just get over that, right? Just assume that's going to happen, make the central banks do it in a reasonably cost-effective way, and then just have at it in the open market and see what happens. I think there'll be winners and losers, right? And that's what makes people nervous, because they think, maybe I'll be a loser, right? Well, okay, why don't you just think like a winner, and then maybe you'll be successful.
XRP, all roads lead to the bridge, the RippleNet. We got Ali G XRP. Let's not forget that Ripple has over 1,700 NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, related to XRP distribution. This is much bigger and deeper than you can ever imagine. XRP drops, according to Larson. Ripple distributed XRP to the market makers and key banks in some ways, just like Visa exactly did.
So two things what we've been doing, which we like, is we've been incenting market makers with XRP forgivable loans. It's essentially the vehicle that we're currently using. But we feel that incents, say, big currency traders, high-frequency traders to actually be active market makers on Ripple. That provides liquid markets. That's good for everybody, gives them an incentive in the long-term success of the network. In some ways, just exactly what Visa did, is they sort of gave out ownership of Visa to key banks to participate in the system. We think that's good.
Meanwhile, Chad Steinberger, the BIS, just stated the current financial system should just be put into the garbage. You know what that means. Flip the switch, nerdy. At some point, you have to say that the DC-9 should just go into the garbage. You need a new plane. We need to do that with the financial system. BIS, the quantum leap. Know what you hold?
I always give the example of when I was governor of the Central Bank of Mexico. And, Mexico is a large country, and we needed to distribute bills. And we had these old planes to distribute the bills. And every year they would come to me and say, we need all this budget to fix the plane. And so I started revising it, And at some point you have to say, I will not modernize, in quotation marks, a DC-9 to distribute bills. At some point you have to buy the new technology. At some point you have to say that DC-9 should go into the garbage can, and you need to get a new plane. And so we got a new plane, and it became very efficient, and we saved a lot of money, and everybody was happy. At some point, we need to do that with the financial system, So a lot of what we discovered is that friction or difficulties is cherished also by some intermediaries because they make money out of it, So to get the dynamics moving, we have to push, but we have to come with a workable plan. And that's what we try to do. The idea is not completely, the idea is revolutionary from the point of view of what Cecilia said, tokenization. Tokenization allows us to change the way we do financial transactions. At the end of the day, it's a very simple idea. It's instead of having, gradual piecemeal steps to complete a transaction, you sort of package all together in the tokens, and then you just exchange tokens, It's very simple. Now, to get to that degree of simplicity, you have to do many complex things. And there is where the technologies come into place. So I already spoke enough, so.
The best is still yet to come. Crawl, walk. Then we rock it. Meanwhile, BRICS pays $4 billion in local currency, sidelines US dollar, de-dollarization. XRP drops IMS first deputy manager director on the dollar dominance.
Very quickly to the question of what does all of this mean for currency? So this is what we're seeing on trade in terms of goods trade going across borders. Is any of this affecting how countries use different currencies? And what this graph is basically telling you that as if the bottom line is that the dollar remains the dominant currency. It's about 80% of trade finance. It's now about 60% of foreign currency reserves. There's been a trend decline in the amount of the dollar in FX reserves over time. It was to be 70%. It has come down over time. But most of the diversification is going to kind of non-traditional reserve currencies like the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar. And yes, there's some to the renminbi, but it's a small fraction. So So where, if anything, are we seeing any changes in terms of on the margin? You do see it in trade finance. So if you look at the left graph over there, that again looks at the different blocks, the China block and the US block, to see what's happening in terms of adoption of renminbi in trade finance. And, you know, within the US leaning block, you really don't see anything. That's not on the slide here, but I'm just telling you, you don't see much at all happening in terms of the US leaning block. But in terms of the China block, you certainly have seen an increase in the use of the renminbi in trade finance.
707 crypto, 190 trillion total volume in cross-border payments 2023 to 290 trillion by 2030, 44 trillion to 100 trillion wholesale, B2B. Bitso, Ripple partner.
Cross-border payments is a huge market. It worth only in 2023, the total payment volume was $190 trillion based on the World Bank. And we have future growth projections of 53%, which will be $290 trillion by the end of this decade, 2030. And why this is important, and just giving you visibility, a big piece of it is wholesale. I will not focus on it, but I want to focus on like B2B payments, e-commerces, B2C, C2B. And today, this piece is $44 trillion, and we have an expected growth for 66. I think this is, you cannot see, but the growth projections for B2B e-commerce, it's 120. I think mainly of you face this situation, or C2B, where your customer is from abroad and needs to send you cross-border payments, or B2C. All of these has huge potential of growth, and still it's a huge market.
All the money, all the value. We'll see you at the tippy top. Let our friend know that the greatest opportunity of multiple lifetimes is still at hand, but the train's left the station. Tick tock, tick tock. The longer they take, the higher we climb. On that XRP risk list, where will those bags be when that regulation jar molasses finally breaks open and XRP's true price is finally revealed? Later, glitches.
Pump it up, pump it up. Pump it up, gotta pump my bags up. Pump it to the moon, pump my bags up. XRP, pump it to the moon. Pump it up, pump my bags up. Pump it up, gotta pump my bags up. Pump it up, gotta pump my bags up. Pump it up, XRP to the moon. Pump it up, pump it up. Pump it up,